Good evening. The meeting for the Winthrop Town Council, October 7, 2014, is now called to order. Councilor Keller, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you please remain standing? A moment of silence for little Mariana Fabiano. Mariana passed away a little short of her 4th birthday this past week. Fabianos were a great supportive old Winthrop family. Jimmy has the package store up at the Highlands, and his mom and dad ran Fabiano's Bakery, and Dolores, Mariana's grandmother, was a real pioneer in special ed here in Winthrop. And we all know Mariana's Uncle Frankie. So if we could all remember them, and beautiful service yesterday, and God bless them all. Thank you. Council Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Callan. Council Sanford. Council Boncory.
Here.
Council Barone.
Present.
Council Terry.
Here.
Council Boyajin.
Present.
Council Mayo. Vice President Del Vento.
Present.
President Gill.
Present. Moving on to the minutes of the quorum being present, we'll move on to the minutes of the September 16th meeting is circulated. Do I have a motion? Motion by Vice President DeVento, seconded by? Second. Councilor Sanford? Any discussion on the minutes? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. One abstention. Abstention by Councilor Lettieri and Councilor Boyajin. 2 abstentions. Public hearing. Public hearing tonight is on the appropriation for the Cottage Hill Pico area water replacement. That $2,800,000 is appropriated for the purpose of financing the replacement of the aged water main and lead services in the Cottage Hill surrounding area and Pico Beach surrounding area, including all costs incidental or related thereto. And to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the town manager, is authorized to borrow $2,800,000 and issue bonds or notes of the town under Chapter 44 of the general laws, or any other enabling authority. Excuse me, the treasurer, with the approval of the town manager, is authorized to borrow all or a portion of such money from the Mass Water Resources Authority, and in connection therewith to enter into a loan agreement and/or financial assistance agreement with the authority, and otherwise to contract with the authority with respect to such loan, and for any grants or aid available for the project or for the financing thereof. Which grants and/or aid shall be expended for the project in addition to the amount appropriated to and be borrowed under this order, and that the town manager is authorized to acquire by purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise such rights, titles, and easements as they may be necessary for such purpose, and to abandon such rights, titles, and easements as they are no longer required, to expend all funds available for the project, and to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out the project. Under the public hearing, is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of the motion? Seeing none, we'll close that side. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the motion? That's all. If not, hearing is closed. Moving on to public comment. John.
Thank you.
Just give your name and precinct, John.
Thank you, Councilor. My name is John Calano, resident of the Premier Precinct, Precinct 5. Just wanted to give a brief report, if I might, on a public hearing that I attended yesterday afternoon on behalf of the town of Winthrop. It was the public hearing that was sponsored by the Mass Department of Environmental Protection on a petition by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation to eliminate a critical proposal that would provide significant public transportation benefits to the town of Winthrop, and and our other neighbors such as East Boston and Revere. Specifically, the proposal to connect the MBTA Blue Line all the way through underneath Cambridge Street, Boston, with a direct connection to the Charles Street MBTA station, which would provide direct one-stop or even no-stop service to Mass General Hospital and all of the drug and medical services for the town without having to go through the convoluted route that we now have to go through, all the way to Government Center, upstairs, transferring to the Green Line, then to the Red Line at Park Street, and then on to Mass General. That would all be eliminated with the Blue Line, Red Line connector, which, by the way, was first proposed a few years ago as part of the environmental remediation associated with the Big Dig project that I participated in. And it's the one element of the Big Dig project which will have direct major benefits for the town of Winthrop. And at this late stage, many years, by the way, after the completion of the Big Dig, to have the state of Massachusetts, through the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, to be advocating to eliminate the legal commitment that was made at the time, in 1993, I believe, either 92 or 93, to eliminate that obligation by the state to go ahead and design and build the Blue Line, Red Line connector is absolutely outrageous. At this time would have made the disbenefits in the future for the town. And it's a broken promise that was made by the state at the time to build the Blue Line, Red Line connector in writing. So as I said, I went to the public hearing yesterday to oppose that motion, that effort by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation at the Department of Environmental Protection hearing. And for the benefit of the town. I've been representing the town, by the way, for the past few years, specifically on the Blue Line, Red Line connector project. We've made great progress in our working group. We've done an awful lot of preliminary analysis. We've come up with at least 3 or 4 different design alternatives that show that that it is a feasible project and could be done. We've actually worked out some preliminary construction timetables and getting very close to a potential final design. And now the Massachusetts Department of Transportation is proposing that the entire project, including just design, forgetting about construction for the moment, that they're actually proposing that the state stop all further development, even on the design of the Blue Line, Red Line connection. Now, this town, through its representatives, has gone on record as strongly supportive of the Blue Line, Red Line connection for many, many years right now. Not only through the former town council, but also through the elected representatives, state representative, for example, and the speaker, Robert DeLeo, state senator Anthony Petroselli, former congressman, Markey, and so forth. There was a long, long history of strong support for the project. And I think that the Massachusetts Department of Transportation attempt, a specific proposal to eliminate that commitment is absolutely outrageous, should not be tolerated. And so one of the things that I would like to do is to request of the town council, if I might, Mr. President, is a specific letter from the town council to the Department of Environmental Protection on this issue, specifically in opposition to the Mass Department of Transportation proposal to eliminate the Blue Line, Red Line connection. Now, we have, the hearing will accept written comments through Tuesday of next week, and I have a copy of the public notice here that I will leave with you. And what I could also do, Mr. President, if it's all right, I could send a copy to all members of the council of all the various past documents that I've accumulated, to give sort of a summary on that, if you would like.
Probably, John, if you could just send me just an outline of what you think would be appropriate for us to send.
Sure, exactly. Kind of go from there. This is, by the way, just an aerial showing above where the cut would go. This is Boston City Hall. This is Mass General Hospital over here. This is the Charles Street MBTA station, and this is Cambridge Street. And the tunnel, for example, would connect from here at the Government Center station underneath Cambridge Street, which is about a 3,100-foot run, to the Charles Street station. Then from the Charles Street station, people could then either get right off at Mass General Hospital or continue on to all those great jobs, high-paying jobs in Kendall Square, Harvard Square, and beyond. So there would, again, so those are the kind of benefits that would go right, you know, that would apply directly to the town of Winthrop.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Is there any further public comment? Chief?
Mr. President, I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge MRC for a food clinic that they ran here in this facility last Saturday due to the graciousness of the director to let us use the facility. They vaccinated 204 residents of the town. These are all volunteers, all professionals, nurses who gave up their weekend. They lucked out it was a rainy weekend, but when they sign up for it, it's not necessarily sometimes going to be a beautiful Saturday. Councilor Ivan was there, and I hope I didn't steal his thunder. He can make a few comments at the closing for those people who tuned in late. But with that being said, we are going to be to the hospitality of the coming school on Thursday from 4 to 7 with another flu clinic. And again, we hope that as many residents as need shots come. We scan the health cards. All of the reimbursements goes back to the health department. So it's a very successful endeavor by these volunteers to serve the people in Winthrop. And I just wanted to thank them for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chief. Any further public comment? Excuse me, public comment. If not, we'll move on to correspondence. We do have a correspondence that the White Cane Week is coming up next. This is the White Cane Month, I should say, and that there is a White Cane Experience demonstration or holding at the State House on the 8th from 12 to 2, if anybody's interested. The White Cane obviously is for the blind, and it speaks to the services to the blind. And it is Wednesday, October 18th at the State House, and it's the International White Cane Day. Under correspondence, we have a correspondence from Attorney Richard Lynn, a petition of the Ocean City Development, LLC, to amend the Town of Winthrop zoning map with respect to 60 Herman Street in Winthrop. And I will read briefly what's here. I won't read the whole thing. Just that this office represents the legal interests of the Ocean City Development, the LLC. Enclosed, please find a petition to be submitted to the Winthrop Town Council to amend the zoning bylaws of the Town of Winthrop to include the real property located at 60 Herman Street, known as the premises, within the Special Development Overlay District, SDOD, as provided in Section 17.48.020 of the Winthrop Town Code. From a procedural perspective, the LLC anticipates the following steps necessary for proper designation of an SDOD. In accordance with General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Town Council should consider the petition and refer the same to the Winthrop Planning Board. Excuse me. No action by the Council of the actual petition within 14 days of the receipt of this petition. Public hearing will be held by the Planning Board within 65 days with a referral of the petition to the Town Council, either to recommend, approve with conditions, or deny. Said action of the Planning Board shall be memorialized at the Planning Board's option in a report to be filed with the Town Council. The Planning Board may also elect to take no action. Upon conclusion of the public hearing, the Winthrop Town Council shall act on any report submitted to the Planning Board. Said report to be submitted to the Council within 21 days of the closure of the public hearing. If no report or recommendation is made to the Council, the Planning Board within 21 days of the public hearing, the Council may adopt, reject, or amend and accept the proposed petition. Any vote to adopt the proposed petition requires a 2/3 vote of the Council. I'd like a motion to refer this to the Planning Board, as that's the proper procedure. At this point, the Council does not take any action on it. Can I have a motion? Motion by Councilor Lettieri, seconded by Councilor Boncory, to refer the petition to the Planning Board. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's referred. Committee reports, Councilor DeLeo.
Mr. President, the Finance Committee did not meet on the one item that was before it because we have several finance items that are going to be presented at this meeting, and we'll handle them all in one meeting for our next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Town Manager's report. Mr. Manager.
Yeah, good evening. I'll try to be as brief as I can tonight, but
Oh, okay. First matter I'd like to do is to take a moment to welcome and introduce Bob Demento, who is our new rink manager at the Larson Rink. Bob is here tonight. I appointed him about a month ago. This was the opportunity I had to present him to the council. I wanted you folks to have an opportunity to, if you had any questions of Bob, but he's hit the ground running. We're excited about his new leadership and skills. He's really impressed us with some early results in terms of his use of technology and his interest in expanding the public skating at the rink and a number of capital improvements projects that we have in mind for the rink. And so, we're very thrilled that Bob stepped up and answered the call to take the job, and we're excited about his leadership. So, thank you, Bob. I'm glad to report that that FEMA has accepted my appeal application, and in doing so have acknowledged that we've met the burden of proof in terms of the scientific claim for standing to appeal the flood maps for the town. And so that's a significant hurdle that we've overcome. And so now the FEMA will have to respond to our claims of science, our cause of action, if you will, on these maps and the questions that we've raised as to their measuring techniques and other substantive issues. We had the consultants of Woods Hole group assist us in really digging very deeply into the science of the proposed maps, and have determined that a number of measures that were taken to implement those maps are questionable. And so we're eager to receive a response from FEMA in terms of how they receive our science, and the results hopefully will be favorable for the town. Yes, Councilor?
Was that appeal just from the town, or was it a joint appeal?
We're doing it, well, the project initiated as a joint appeal with Chelsea and Revere. But, the science was specific to Winthrop, so they did it all under one contract and saved the town quite a bit of money that way. But in doing so, a lot of the science involved in analyzing flood impacts to the region could be used in other applications, and so we benefited from an economies of using them as a joint purchase. But our appeal is our appeal as a community, and so it's a standalone appeal.
Thank you.
I continue to be involved in union negotiations as we speak, and those discussions are progressing. We are conducting a review of the town's insurance policies this month, and I'm grateful to have the cooperation of the schools and Tim Gordon. We're sitting down, looking at our policies, seeing if we need to improve some of the coverages for those policies. We did meet with Blue Wave to get an update on their implementation of the electrical contract that we've engaged in with them, and they were able to receive, on behalf of the town, necessary SREC credits, if you will, energy credits that are allowed under the state, and so our project qualified, and so it's moving forward. I'm happy to report. Ultimately, it should mean that 80% of our electrical purchase for public buildings will be solar power generated, and at 9.5 cents per kilowatt hour, which is beating the market price substantially. We are applying for a challenge grant for a town social worker to focus on substance abuse case management in the town. We've had discussions with the police department and several of the council members, as well as other agencies in town, and we feel it's a much needed addition to our ability to manage cases where we've identified particular folks who need life coaching and direction as they move through a very difficult challenge with their substance addiction. So we're moving forward with that grant. It would be a capacity building grant under the Board of Health, and it would be a buy down and an increase in our absorbing of the cost over a 3-year period. We know that Chelsea has implemented 2 of these life coaches in their city and are seeing some good results already. The suggestion that we do this came through a process that we undertook regionally with Revere and Chelsea and Saugus, and we certainly see this as an absolute need of the community to help families and individuals cope with the challenges of addiction. We are presently under review by the Department of Revenue. They were in today and looking at our annual report, and they will be getting back to us in due course as to their findings. And the Dalrymple living apartment ribbon cutting is scheduled for October 15th. I've had a chance to walk through the facility, and it's really quite amazing the way they've rehabilitated that building, and it's quite a showcase facility. I know if I were of that age, I certainly wouldn't mind living there myself. It's quite, and the views are tremendous. So it's getting every day closer.
You have to fight me for one of the units, you're going to have a battle.
It's really tremendous, and I'm just so thrilled that, you know, for a long time the town struggled with this project, and here we are at the day we all hoped for, which is an opening of this facility on October 15th. I hope you all will join us.
What time is that?
I'll get the specifics to the council on the event. I believe it's in the late morning. And so I'd ask Tim to report, Tim Gordon to report on a couple of items as they appear on our agenda tonight. He can give you a little update on a couple of items.
All right, there's just a few motions here that I think require a little explanation. The first one I want to touch on is the raise and appropriate $5,026.67 in interest payments for the school bond anticipatory note. So we borrowed short-term for the new school building $8 million back in March. That's come due. We've actually, as I reported 3 weeks ago, that we actually initiated the first long-term borrowing. This short-term borrowing resulted in a total interest of $29,666. The $8 million bond also came with a $24,000 premium. So we're using the premium to pay the majority of the interest on the bond, and this $5,026.67 is the net. That's the difference between the total interest and the premium. So this will be recorded on the recap in the next couple of months, and this will be the first part of the debt exclusion costs for the school for the next calendar year. So that's the first one. The second motion relates to the schools. It's the appropriate the $854,911 on the sale of bond issues for the high school project. So we went out and borrowed the $24 million, as I mentioned. That came with a bond over $900,000. Once you net out the borrowing costs, the net is $854,911. What this motion is doing is basically restricting that premium to future borrowing on the school. So it's essentially reducing the total amount that we're going to need to borrow once we go to the next phase of long-term borrowing to close it off. So that's what that's about. And then finally, there's a motion on the rink fund appropriation of $11,200. If you recall, during the budget process, we level funded the rink and rec enterprise funds. And I had mentioned at the time that we're doing that to see how they close out the year, and we may be coming back with an amendment to that to appropriate additional funds. The rink closed out. What this basically is doing is appropriating additional budgetary money to them, but it's still within the margin of their revenue that they collected last year. So this is mostly for salaries. There's a little bit of contract services there as well. So just wanted to explain those articles.
Okay. That concludes my report.
Questions from the council?
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Council Bill, sorry.
So, on this social work,
Yeah.
can it only be used for drug issues?
Well, I don't think so, but I think the predominant need will be the basis upon which we're asking for the grant. So we do have to have a scope of work that's approved by the state when they fund it for grant purposes. Obviously, we're looking for someone who can really help redirect people from and away from substance abuse as a primary issue. There are so many other things that fold into that issue, though, that I suspect that, one would find themselves dealing with issues of job training and education and other kinds of life coaching that comes along with it.
And where are they going to live?
We're going to have to find a place for them.
Because I like the idea. I said it all season. I think it's a necessity to have. I just would broaden it out with, COA and fire and police.
Yeah.
And I think, I spoke about it in the past, I just think you have to do it. So, your Dalrymple School building that has the parking lot, is it set in stone what's going on with the parking and the paying and the,
No, that has to come up to council.
as a motion?
Yes, we have to, and I discussed this with the council president, we
Uh-huh,
have to
okay.
propose an ordinance that would anoint this as a public parking facility and, in accordance with what the plan has been, to provide public beach parking during the day, that we would have a meter box for that, so that there's circulation in this lot, and it is available for beach purposes. At night, the proposal would be that it would remain, as all parking facilities, available to the neighborhood. But they would have to leave, just like Crest Ave, they would have to leave in the morning and make it available for daily use. But we would have to propose an ordinance for that.
Okay, thank you.
Whoa. I'm not done.
Councilor Mayo?
Yeah. The town manager mentioned that FEMA is looking over our information, but the fact remains is that you have to do your own due diligence about your own flood insurance. Whatever this group does, it may or may not affect your specific property. So this is a cautionary period. People shouldn't listen and say, I got a break. People should listen and say, now's the time to get it cooking before something falls through the cracks and bingo, you're behind the 8 ball on it. So.
Thank you, Councilor Mayo. Any further comments from the town manager?
I didn't hear, was that for the Dalrymple or for the municipal parking lot that you were talking about?
He was talking specifically about the Dalrymple.
Okay, yeah.
There's a municipal lot next door to the Dalrymple that was
We maintain.
constructed
That
for the
lot.
town.
Specifically that lot right now.
Okay. Yep.
Any other questions from the town manager?
Just as a claim, there's no
Yeah.
motion on, right now, people park there, they can't get the sense that this is, home turf, because there's people parking there every night now. And, so we should either decide what to do about it.
Yeah,
You're in
that'll take place after a motion is passed on an ordinance. is passed. At this point, it's not. Any further comments from the town manager? Okay, moving on to old business. Councilman Alberto.
Yeah, can you copy that? Pursuant to the public hearing we held tonight
It's got
and
to start somewhere.
pursuant to the, sorry about this, but I have to get back to it. Too many things open. The Finance Committee's recommendation of September 15th is a motion that came out before the council for Cottage Hill and Pico Beach area water main replacement project bond issue. I'll read the text of the motion, which the Council President already read. Yes, we're ready again. that $2.8 million appropriated for the purpose of financing the replacement of aging water mains and lead services in the Cottage Hill surrounding area and Pico Beach surrounding area, including all costs incidental or related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the town manager, is authorized to borrow $2.8 million in issue bonds or notes of the town under Chapter 44 of the general laws or any other enabling authority, that the treasurer, with the approval of the town manager, is authorized to borrow all or a portion of such money from the Mass Water Resources Authority in the connection with therewith, to enter into a loan agreement or financial assistance agreement with the authority, and otherwise to contract with the authority with respect to such loan for any grant or aid available for the project for the financing thereof, which grants and/or aid shall be expended for the project in addition to the amount appropriated and to be borrowed under this order. The town manager is authorized to acquire by purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise such rights, titles, and easements as they may be necessary for such purpose, to abandon such rights, titles, and easements as is no longer required, and to expend all funds available for the project, and take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project.
It's a motion. It didn't come from committee. Did it come from committee with a positive, or was it a referral directly to the
It was
council?
referred directly to the council.
So we'll need a second for that motion, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Sanford. Is there any discussion on the motion? Yes, Councilor Sanford.
To the right.
Craig?
Pardon?
Craig?
Down here.
Councilor Mayo.
I still think we should put a little more into this and get the sidewalks and the whole place done up right.
Any further comment?
I'll make an amendment.
Councilor.
Well, I don't know if we can make an amendment on it.
You can make an amendment. Yeah, okay.
I'd like to make an amendment that we do the job right up there. And I think it should be all sidewalks redone, you know, so the place looks, when people come down Walden Street, they go, wow, we're already putting up $2.8 million. I can't, you know, if people are against it, fine, but it's a few extra dollars and you're getting it to go, wow. That's a beautiful spot up there and, so that's my thought on it. I make that amendment.
An amendment by Councilor Mayo. Is there a second to his amendment?
I'll second that for
Second by
discussion,
Councilor Barone.
for purposes of discussion.
Open for discussion. Councilor.
Now, if we vote for this amendment, it couldn't be funded out of the same source? Or is it funded separately, the sidewalk?
This motion is specifically for the 2.8 million. I don't think that we can
Fund it.
do this amendment without a number attached to it. Right.
Yeah, so in other words, I just wanted to ask that question, the reason why I said it.
I think the proper procedure would be that we would pass this motion without the amendment, and then at a future date, make a separate motion for a specific amount of money to include the rest of it.
We have to.
Does that, you agree with that too?
Yes, I would.
So can I withdraw my second?
You may.
All right, I got it.
Councilor, 1 second. Councilor Mail, did you want to withdraw your motion? If not, do we have a second?
I'd like it to go on that I made the motion.
Oh, it'll stay in the record that you made the motion.
Then that's good enough.
And then my suggestion is that at some point in the future, you'll make a new motion to attach to this with a number on it. Mr. McMahon.
In the interest of keeping that as an open subject matter, I hope the minutes reflect that you continue this matter as a subject matter going forward, beyond any vote that you might take tonight, that there is opportunity, so that we don't have to re-advertise and do all of that, that this is in fact...
I don't know procedurally directly. Procedurally, can we say that this matter will be continued for a
Yes.
further motion without having an additional?
For one council meeting, and we can come back and report on what we believe is a response to the amendment subject matter, such as an inventory of sidewalks, what we would do, and
But it would
what that
still
would
have to come in
cost.
as a new motion.
It would, yes, naturally.
You have to have a public hearing, a new public
Well,
hearing.
that's my
It's a
question.
bond issue, you have to go to a different public hearing.
If you continue this tonight, I believe the public hearing stays open, because it's an amendment to the main motion.
But I've closed the public hearing already.
Right, but the subject matter has been already advertised, and you can amend your motion, because this is, I believe, a proper amendment to the amount to be authorized. You're looking to expand to include sidewalks and other detail that, Counselor, you were looking to have included as part of the project. That, I believe, is germane to the subject of the advertisement and the purposes of tonight's public hearing.
But then procedurally, can we vote this motion?
I believe that you can vote the motion, but continue the matter so that to allow for an amendment of the authorization for reconsideration at your next meeting.
Councilor Dugan.
Mr. President, I'm going to ask the CFO on that one, because he and I, we've had issues with the bond council on language of our minutes and how we voted things. So maybe safer with bond council to keep this as a separate. We know that, I think we all feel that we're going to investigate the possibility of sidewalks and attach, and do that. We can always do that as a second round. We're not moving, too fast, but I think for bond council's sake, would it be cleaner to have it this way?
My opinion is it would be. What I'm unclear about is the public hearing. So the public hearing's been closed.
Right.
Right.
So is it within the scope of the public hearing?
Yes, yes. I believe that it's in the scope of the public hearing. You're looking to amend the amount authorized to include some sidewalk detail, correct?
The amendment did not pass.
No, but you're looking for further information on it. You're allowed to continue the matter to the subsequent meeting, and we'll provide that detail so that you can take the matter up in total. But if you want to vote the one level of 2.8 million tonight, you can do that, and leave the matter open to further consideration of an amendment for the next council meeting. And I think that is certainly falls under the rubric of what we've advertised and the point of the public hearing.
To cover our bases, would it make sense to advertise a public hearing for the next meeting to expand this?
Absolutely.
I just don't want to get into the process of the bond council coming back and saying, you had a public hearing, you closed the public hearing, now you're making a new motion.
Again, you're amending the motion subsequent to the main motion, which is the same subject matter of what you've advertised. It's part of the consideration of the project. You've noticed what we've asked to do. There's a request to amend that motion. We will provide information so that you can make that amendment. Right now, you don't have the information.
That's right.
Right.
And you don't have, not to disagree, it'd be sticky, but I don't want to get into trouble with the bond council who says you had a public hearing that you closed. Public hearing that you closed was on 2.8 million. Now you're coming up with an additional after you close the public hearing. And,
I agree with
Counsel?
you. You're right.
If you,
I
no,
agree 100%.
I see it as part of the public discussion, that this is integral to the public works that's being considered. I don't see it as a separate matter, but I'll defer to you.
well, there's another possibility. If we don't vote on the 2.8 tonight, we could vote on an amended motion next week.
Yes.
And that would still cover
It would still cover you, right.
So a motion
So-
to table till next week?
Motion to postpone till the next meeting. Do I have a motion? Yes. By Councilor Lettieri?
I just...
Is there a second?
Right.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Montori. We'll postpone till next meeting, at which point, we will listen to an amendment and to the details of the amendment. All those in favor of postponing to the next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Council President?
Yes.
Just if I could, I'm sure Council Mail didn't mean that the project wasn't going to be done right.
No,
I mean,
I-
in defense of DPW overseeing these projects, I'm sure he just wants the funding for additional sidewalks and to make it a complete project.
Right, exactly.
In defense of DPW and the town manager.
No, and I think we discussed that a little bit last time with
Yeah.
Steve, where you said that you couldn't do the whole project for 2.8, doing all the sidewalks. What you were choosing to do was to do the whole project, instead of doing half of the project completely. That sounds backwards, doesn't it? But instead of doing half of the project with all sidewalks and everything, do the whole project and not replacing the sidewalks that are in good condition.
That's correct. We're looking to get our water main, our infrastructure
upgraded, we're gonna get streets out of it. Believe me, I agree with Councilor Mail. I want to see all the sidewalks done as well. You get into doing all the sidewalks on every roadway, there's at least 14 roads that we're into on this project. You can figure on sidewalk alone about $50,000 to $60,000 a road. Once you get into sidewalks, you now get into curb work. You got to bring everything up to ADA compliancy. You add pedestrian ramps. I mean, it's not a small number. If you approve it, I would love to be the one to oversee that project. I would love to see it get done. But you can expect about at least $750,000 at least added on to the cost estimate.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on.
One comment. So here's how I look at it. If we can get a cost of it, then everybody can put a value judgment on whether it's worth it or not, and we can add it on. But I look at some of those things and say, we owe a curb cut for handicapped people if we can do it. And, you know, over a period of time, how long do we pay these off? 10 years? So let's say it's 50 to 60,000, you know, extra a year. It just, you know, when you're getting down to $5 and $8, you know, the math to me makes sense. 9 people, everybody in town ponders it for 2 weeks. We get the number. If people are for it, you'll hear about it. If they're not for it, you won't. We can make our decision at that point.
Okay, any further discussion we'll hold till the next meeting. Shirley Street, Cross Street, poll petition, Mr. McKenna.
That's continues.
Continued again. Storing of motor vehicles, the planning board has not formulated their recommendation, so we will continue that to the next meeting. Transfer of $20,000 to fund specialized training is to be continued to the next meeting. Under new business, Councilor Dovan.
I'm going to ask that we, Council President, refer the next series of items directly to the Finance Committee. We'll have a hearing next week so that we can discuss everything there. That'll be the first motion to move the town raise and appropriate $5,026.67 to fund residual interest payments on school building bond anticipatory note. Amounts required to pay said interest shall be exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5 or take any other action relative thereto. There is another motion to move that the town appropriate $854,911.16 from the premium paid to the town upon the sale of bonds issued for the purpose of paying costs of the so-called middle high school building project fund 856, which bonds are the subject of a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion, to pay costs of the project being financed by such bonds and to reduce the amount authorized to be borrowed for such project but not yet issued by the town by the same amount, or take any other action relative thereto. A motion that the town council vote to approve the payments for prior year bills in the aggregate $1,957.67 from the current year budget for each department as noted. Cemetery Department, $887.67, Board of Health, $1,070. Move that the town increase the FY15 Rink Enterprise Fund appropriation by $11,200 from $261,221 to $272,041 to meet the expected expenditures of the rink. The $11,200 increase will be allocated as follows: personnel $9,000, supplies and equipment $200, contract services $2,000. Funds for this increase is from increased revenue projections or take any other action relative thereto. Move the town council vote to transfer $1,608 from the capital stabilization fund 964 to fund electrical and panel replacement at town hall, second floor, and fire panel replacements at the police station and DPW building, or take any other action relative thereto. I believe that's all the finance.
Could I have a motion to refer the package of those 5 items to the Finance Committee? Motion by Council Lettieri, seconded by Council. Who seconded? I'm sorry, Sanford. Any discussion of the motion? Not all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Denise, would you advertise a public hearing for the next meeting? Or that we need to have a public hearing, right, Nick, for that 854-911?
Yes.
So would you advertise one for the next regular meeting? Yep. Seeing no further business, public comment. I did that, yeah, I did that. Chief Flanagan, under public comment, could you just give us a couple of updates, one on the National Fire Prevention and one on the MWRA Citizens Committee?
Fire Prevention Week, October 5th to the 11th is Fire Prevention Week. We at the Winthrop Fire Department try to have every week be a week that you prevent household fires, but in 1871, commemorating the Great Chicago Fire, they formed Fire Prevention Week. In that fire, 250 people lost their lives, 100,000 were left homeless, and 17,000 structures were destroyed, and over 2,000 acres were burned. Here we are 140 years later, and just a couple of years ago, we lost 100 people in the Station nightclub. So there's still work to be done. Every year since the inception of Fire Prevention Week, there's been a slogan. This year's slogan is "Smoke alarms save lives, test yours every month." Back in 1942, I think it was, "Every fire helps Hitler" was the fire prevention slogan that year. So we've come a long way. But again, tomorrow night at 6:30, we have a little presentation for kids in Winthrop Public Library. Thursday night, excuse me, at 6:30. It's October 9th, I know that. And so we'll have some firefighters up there. We'll be explaining gear. We're into the private pre-Ks around town teaching fire education. So again, you know, we're coming into heating season. Change your clock, change your battery and your smoke detectors. So again, you know, be careful all year round. As far as the MWRA community meeting, which we have a spring and fall meeting, the authority has got in touch with Kathleen Capuccio and her group, and they've agreed to have it on October 22nd at 7 p.m. on the island in their facility, because they have all of the audio, visual, and technical assistance we need to have the meeting. There'll be an update on co-digestion. There's a meeting coming up at the MAPC in Boston, which is going to have a lot of the think tank people telling you what's going to happen as this DEP regulation goes into effect, where all the food waste is going to go, and where they see the direction of this is for the next 10 years. So there'll be a lot of insight in that whole new industry which is going to be formed.
Just on the citizens, MWRA, that's open to the public, correct?
That is open to the public. The MWRA is going to put it in the transcript, as well as the town officials will put it on the manager's blog. It will be on WCAT, and we'll push it out wherever we can.
Great, thank you very much, Chief. Judy Van Kooyman is here tonight, and she has asked me to mention that there is an Oktoberfest here at the Senior Center on Saturday, October 25th, from 10 to 2. Judy, would you like to comment on that at all, or just that? Okay, very good. Is there any further public comment?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Mayo.
A couple of things. The Oktoberfest thing that was good, and I know we have one coming up for Christmas.
We can't hear you, Craig.
Oh, sorry. What I was, wondering about is if anybody, had some idea on some winter type of carnival event they could have outdoors in the town, square area there, French Square. If they would, help me out on that, because I can't think of anything, but I thought it would be a good idea. And I don't know who would handle this, but last night there were some very important discussions that went on around town. The school committee had their MassCast recap, and the planning board had a discussion on parking, and and there were some interesting things over at licensing. Everybody had their meeting on the same night. I don't know who can be the ringleader of meetings to spread these out so that people have more opportunities to want to go to them. So, and finally,
just a comment on the crowded meetings last night. 2 of them were moved because of the holiday being next Monday. They're normally on the second Monday, and they were moved because of the holiday. That was the buy-up last night.
I just wonder if they could, stretch them out over a longer period of time. And finally, one other thing I'd like to get some comments on is, I know we have the TV set up in the Harvey room right now. But for meetings that go on in that room, I think we should really consider looking again at some type of system that we can use for electronic meeting, and we should probably include that, and the same person that does that, you know, if we even had a second setup, that person could probably, by video, cover both of the meetings, record them, and we would have, you know, somebody who would also run the systems. And we have various committees that have stipends for secretaries. Some of them have them, don't use them. Some of them have them. You know, we could probably cobble some stuff together, because it seems to me that we'd be getting a better capability to track and broadcast what we're doing, and also be able to control the flow of information that we have. So I really think we should step up, and I don't know if the town manager does it or if the council that does it, but I think it's a good idea. I know we talked about it in the past, and the issue was who was going to manage it once we got it. And I think it's time that we consider, you know, funding somebody to do that.
Maybe if you could put together a little package and present it to the town manager with your ideas. Mrs. Councilwoman?
Are you talking about a video conferencing?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, we should move forward. You know, we should fund the person for it.
Okay, is there any further public comment?
Wish to adjourn?
You adjourned by Council Vice President Del Vento. Second by Council Lettieri. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Town Council, and I'm going to turn the call over to Mr. McKenna. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. It's an exciting time to be in Winthrop. You know, a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight, I think, are really a reflection of, you know, the strength and the emerging of this community as a both a community that has come together on a number of fronts, but a lot has to do with the staff and the department managers of the town who continue to move the town forward in so many ways, and I'm just so proud to be part of this effort. It's a big lift to emerge out of a recession as strong both internally and externally as we have. And it doesn't go missed on my part. I'll tell you that it's in large measure due to the department managers and staff of this community. I can just say the other day I was stopped right in my tracks in the middle of Hermit Street. No car was coming. But I was just amazed. I went over to get a sandwich at the meat market. I walked across the street, and there were two DPW workers in the pouring rain fixing the crosswalk in Hermit Street. And I just had to stand there and shake their hands and watch what they were doing. You know, they could have been more pleasant and more willing to take a minute and tell me what they were doing in the pouring rain. And I can say, having worked in a number of communities, that that's a rare opportunity to find that happening in municipal government. And I'm just grateful that Winthrop abounds with it, really, because we're seeing it all over town, both internally and externally. We had a visit today from the Department of Revenue, and I used to fear those meetings. And today I couldn't wait to look Everett Griffiths in the eye and get his thoughts and comments about how far we've come, how quickly we've come, to a point where, under the leadership of Tim Gordon and his staff, you know, we've really turned a big corner in this town with fiscal prudence and strength. And so, you know, I take a lot of pride in what you're going to see tonight, both in the schools, in the streets, within our offices, and some of the extra effort that is being conducted by our department heads, which we'll showcase tonight. And so with that, I'd ask John Massaro to begin our discussion. But just to quickly go over the agenda, we'll be talking about the schools and their new programs and new outlook on on what they're promoting within the schools. We've heard a lot about the hardscape, but now we're really going to refocus tonight on some of the inside the classroom stuff that we were all excited about hearing about. Then we're going to talk to Tim Gordon about risk management as a new concept for the town to look at the number of ways that we can plan strategically to protect the community as best we can. And then we're going to take a deep dive into code enforcement, and what's going on in our neighborhoods, and what that has resulted in, some of the turnaround that we've witnessed. And then we're going to have a quick slideshow that I'm fond of, that shows the progress that the town has made over the past 5 years, and a bit of a retrospective, but also a nice way to conclude as encapsulating all of the work that we've been doing, both in terms of project management and then also in terms of improvements to our parks and our streets. And so with that, I turn over to John. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. McKenna. And to Mr. Flanagan, I'll try not to be too dramatic. The first slide, who's doing the slides? Are we doing the slides? Oh, okay, great.
Move on.
So we have a lot of new initiatives that we've kind of taken over this year. First of all, as I spoke to everybody about 2 weeks ago about our transition, as I've said before, if you have not been to the high school, you need to get to the high school. Also, I wanted to just let you know that as of last night, the library at the high school has now become live, so you can do a meeting in there if you ever want to, and it's live to the community right from there. We have that taken care of with Comcast. Besides all of the transition and the building stuff that we were able to do over the past summer and get ourselves ready while we're waiting for a brand new building to be built, the buildings are great, but what we're doing within the schools is more important. So what I wanted to just show you, if I could just go to the next slide, that would be great. I wanted to talk about some technology initiatives that we're finally moving forward on. And one of them right here that you see that I'm holding here is the iPad. And we're extremely proud to have all our high school students from grades 8 through 12 now actually have an iPad in their hands. One of the greatest moments that I had and privilege I had the other night was being able to hand out an iPad to each student in the grades 8 through 12 to meet each parent in doing so. And I will tell you, one of the things that it did do is I saw a change in our students immediately. And that change was the sense of respect. They understand that we're giving them a piece of equipment. We're respecting that they're going to utilize that to their potential as a tool. And in return, they're respecting us by making sure that they utilize that tool and feeling a sense of ownership of a project that's moving us into the 21st century. And there's lots of stuff that we are working on now with training our staff, our teachers at the high school level, to be able to utilize these iPads on a daily basis. With having the iPads at grades 8 through 12, the goal will be to move that down to 6 through 12 once the new school project is complete in 2 years, and it's 6 through 12, and then look at other opportunities as well at the lower levels. You can see that we've also have established now a Khan Academy at the 4th through 7 with Ryan Herity, under the leadership of Ryan Herity, working with his teachers. What a Khan Academy is all about, for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's a great tool on the computer that the student agrees to be with, the parent agrees to go on, and the teacher is enabled that student to work on individualized curriculum that is going to be differentiated instruction for that child so that they can obtain and master the goals that they need to master. A lot of times, when we were in school, teachers taught us, but if they taught the whole class, and if the whole class wasn't there, they moved on. And in ways, we do that because we have a lot of areas that we need to get to, because the MCAS require us to get to those standards. But kids don't all learn at the same pace. And it's important for our teachers and for our parents and for, more importantly, our students to understand that we can help them obtain that knowledge. And so with the Khan Academy, it becomes more individualized. So we have now Chromebooks that have been established at the Cummings School. We got a wonderful gift that allowed us to get a new set of Chromebooks too. So within the last 2 years, we've had two 30-set Chromebook sets that are now being utilized. They get signed out, the classrooms are using it. Because we are now having the iPads at the high school, the laptops that we had at the high school and other desktops will be able to come down to the lower levels and to be used. We had smart technologies in certain classrooms at the Cummings School. We will now have smart projectors in all the classrooms at the Cummings School starting next week. That's a huge initiative as well. We don't want certain subjects to feel that, oh, they get the smart technology and the others do not. No, we're taking care of everybody in that area because this is how kids learn today. And then you'll see down at the lower level, we've created what we call document cameras. You may have heard what an Elmo is, but in the document cameras that we have now, they're called Mobies. And in the classroom, you can take a document camera, and I should have brought one to show, but I could take this pad right here, I could put the camera right on it, and it would come up there. And I could do it from anywhere in the room. So student work can be placed right there. You can take a look at it. It can be edited. There's lots of stuff that we do that keeps students involved and engaged. So those are wonderful initiatives that we're doing. We're moving into that 21st century. We're not waiting for a new building, because a building is a building, but we're not waiting for that stuff to be able to do that. We're doing it as we move down because we know that in order for our students to master what they need to master, we have to have this taken care of. And then in the curriculum areas, we've expanded. We've looked at our MCAS. We've looked at areas that we know that we need to expand in certain places. We have a Go Math curriculum that's been from K through 5 that has been working successfully in those areas. But at grade 6, we weren't sure what was happening in that particular area. We didn't have a strong curriculum book that was matching with the Common Core. And if we're being tested on the Common Core, needless to say, common sense will tell you need to have a curriculum that's going to match that Common Core. And so Go Math, we've now expanded it to grade 6 under Mr. Harrity's leadership. This year, for those we went down to 3 buildings. We have 3 building principals. We were able to take one of the building principals that we did not replace, and we're going to replace that with a curriculum director that will be beginning in January. This curriculum director will be in charge of humanities and STEM. We'll be working with the lead teachers in all schools and the principals. I know in the past we had 2 curriculum directors, a humanities and a STEM director. However, we didn't build the infrastructure for that position to survive. Now I believe we've built that, and now I feel that we're going to be able to move forward and work with that because it's an essential piece that we need to make sure that we are performing at the state level with the Common Core and to make sure that we're working with that. We have been able to roll out world language now in grades 4 through 12. Part of that beauty this year was in the reconfiguration of our schools because we have 3. We're at K through 3, a 4 through 7, and a 8 through 12 at the high school. But the exciting part of that 4 through 7 is that we were able to take the specialists that were at the middle school and start them at the 4th grade level. So we have Spanish being taught to 4th grade students, 5th grade students that were never getting that before. We also have now some special subjects that are being taught there as well. I've gotten a lot of great comments from parents that have said, geez, my child's getting Spanish, geez, my child's getting drama at the 4th grade level. As you may or may not know, we started an instrumental program last year. The instrumental program has grown significantly this year. We have 160 students that are in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade that are taking instruments, which means, Mr. Driscoll, we're about 3 years away from marching that band down to go next to the football team. But we're going to get there. And those are how these projects start as we go along. But our kids are excited, they're engaged. musical instrument I guarantee you will see a major increase over time in math when you see the instruments because of what these kids are doing and learning and the beats and the quarter notes and the fractions and all of those things will come together in those areas. And then last, what I just wanted to let you know is that people have talked to us about this, and this is something that we're looking at down the road within a year, probably more like 2 years. And part of that is people have said, what might happen with the building that currently we've turned into the high school? One of our goals that I've worked with and I've gone to the town manager to talk to about is I'd love to see a community college come in here in partnership with us. I'd like to see the community college perhaps maybe even go where the current middle school is, or the current high school, I should say now. And the reason for that is there's 2 things that we can do with that partnership. One is we can partnership with students that are having difficulties, graduating, because we are charged against that if they drop out. But more importantly, if we need for an extra year or so for them to complete that, they can complete that at the partnership of a community college where they feel that they're still at that level, and that enables them to get a high school diploma. The other part, which is very intriguing as well, is for students that are at an advanced level that want to obtain an associate's degree before they graduate high school, which can be done, and I have an example of it with my own niece out in the state of Washington. She graduated from a junior college before she graduated from high school 1 week before, but she's now going to graduate this year at San Diego State University and only have had to serve there 3 years and already have a master's program from that. So what that does is it allows families and students who want to obtain, because a lot of times people say we do a lot of stuff for students that need extra services, and sometimes we don't do stuff for students who want challenges. Well, we can, and we will do that here. And so my idea here is to partnership with those community colleges. If we've got the space here, let's do it. Let's take a look at it and offer our students an opportunity that are going to high school to also maybe come out with an associate's degree when they graduate. So those are the exciting things that we're looking at the school department, and these are the initiatives, and we're pretty excited. We're off to a good time, and now I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Gordon, who pays for all of this.
All right, thanks, John. Next slide, please. Next slide. All right, so we're going to talk here just a little bit about risk management. I'm going to provide an overview of it. This is really a work in progress. Risk management is really about protecting resources, protecting our resources. It includes public safety, it includes all our assets, and I just want to tell a little bit about what we're doing in this area and give you a little bit of background. So we're going to define, sort of give an academic definition, talk about taking and managing risk, and then I'm going to go over this assessment exercise that we went through over the past couple of months and give you a sense of what direction we're going in. Next slide. All right, so this is an academic definition, but essentially risk management is about identifying, assessing, prioritizing your risks, and also putting some effort into trying to control the probability and the impact of unfortunate events. Next slide. All right, this is a busy slide, I know that it is. So this is about taking risk and the type of exposures that it can result in. Strategic risk is at the top for a reason. Strategic risk is about value creation. It's about making decisions that impact your mission that will move the organization forward in a positive direction. It includes things such as building schools or buying a boat. Both have risks associated with them. It's important to understand what the risks are and do your best to mitigate them along the way. These other risks, operational compliance, financial ethics, safety, these are all more about value preservation. It's about having effective oversight at all levels of management to make sure you're able to respond effectively to a crisis or a situation or an adverse event. And having a lot of strength in these areas provides clarity to be able to deal with the strategic issues you know, decisions that you need to make. If you don't have strength, it's a strong foundation for making those strategic decisions. And then reputational risk sort of runs in all areas, and we all are familiar with what reputational risk can involve. Next slide. All right, so there's different ways to manage risk. The most common way is to mitigate it. That's using and implementing strong internal controls over operations, finance, compliance, to make sure that you have a strong organization to deal with the risk. You can accept a risk and continually monitor. Accepting a risk usually occurs when the cost to actually mitigate it and try to control it is far greater than just accepting the risk. And transferring the risk usually involves insurance. We have Maya that takes care of our risk management from an insurance perspective. And then finally, you can avoid a risk altogether in some cases. This is more on the strategic end, where you could actually decide not to do things that are risky, but there's a flip side to that as well. Next slide. Inherent risk is really the risk that exists when there's no mitigating factor yet. It's sort of a general risk that might exist regardless of what industry you're in, whether it be the federal government, Xerox, or the town of Winthrop. The residual risk is what remains after you've implemented some mitigation, whether it be internal controls or insurance or however you want to try to control that risk. Your residual risk is what you're left with at the end. That is still a risk, but it's something that hopefully you're comfortable with in terms of accepting. Next slide. All right, so this is just sort of a standard risk management model. We talked about identifying risk. Then you go through the process of assessing them. That's the exercise that we went through that I'll get to next. You got to figure out who actually owns the risk. Sometimes that's easy, sometimes not so easy. A lot of times it's shared. And then you manage it, monitor it, and then you do the whole cycle all over again. So if you go to the next slide. So these are a bunch of risk statements that I came up with. And what we did is we identified, we surveyed 9 town officials. And we may expand that to more if we want to take another whack at this. So basically, we asked them to take each of these and assess, in their own opinion, what the probability of occurrence is, from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. And then the impact, 1 being the lowest impact, 5 being the highest impact. So send that out. There was no discussion. We had one meeting with many of us, and we just kind of went over a lot of this stuff. But I didn't want one person influencing the other person. So we did this. I ended up taking the information, taking all of the data I received, and I created a heat map, which if you go to the next slide, hopefully it'll be there. Oh, okay, here are more of these. And I think this slideshow will be out there available for folks to look at in terms of all these risk statements. I don't see a need to read each one of these, but if you go to the next slide. Okay, so here are the results really of the assessment. Upper right-hand corner, these are the risks that were identified as being high impact, high probability, all in the 3.5 to 4 range in terms of the average. None of them are really low risks. You see, the lowest is about 2.5 score each for regulatory and financial. So it's just part of it is just kind of interesting to see how it all lays out. So then the question is, okay, so it's interesting, but what do we do with it, right? So the next step would be to take some of these, in theory, start with the high risks, and really analyze what type of mitigating controls you have to control them. So HR issues, that actually was number 1. We have an HR professional on board now. We're working on policies and procedures. There's other things we can do there. And we have insurance, and that's a mitigating control. Natural disaster, major accident. Well, on the one hand, you can't really control a natural disaster, but we can make sure that our fire department has the equipment and the response capability to deal with the managing an emergency. And then you just kind of take each one of them and kind of analyze them as you go through. This is, it's not a perfect science. it is a way, though, it is something to sort of incorporate into the management process, so that when you, and it's a way to think when you're thinking about a new initiative that you may want to take on. It's good to think in terms of, well, what's the possible adverse impact that this could have, or what are some of the risks associated with it. We kind of do that a lot of times anyway, but this just provides a little bit of structure and sometimes an opportunity to discuss it in a group. I know my former life, we had risk management councils and risk management committees that looked at a lot of this stuff on a regular basis. So, next slide, please. All right, so I mentioned before, the overall goal is really to protect our resources. But in an effort to get there, what we're trying to do is identify and reduce and manage some of our risks, make sure we have appropriate mitigation, identify some risk ownership, and just sort of incorporate this train of thought and these practices into normal operations and decision making. So, as I said, this is a work in progress. We're continuing with it, but Jim thought it was a good idea to bring it before the council, just to give you a heads up on some of the stuff that we're working on.
Thank you, Tim.
What I thought was really eye-opening on this is not just to what it showed us, but the depth of talent that we have in Town Hall, and maximizing opportunities to use that talent in ways that can really advance our community, to get us out of our comfort zones and get us to explore other things that we do and we know and we bring to the table as professionals, and move the town forward to look something fresh in the face and say, how can we do it differently? And so I really appreciate Tim's expertise in risk management and the professionalism he brings to this conversation to show us how we can think differently about a very dry subject, frankly. Now, let's bring together the folks who've been in the streets, advancing our neighborhoods and cleaning up some derelict properties, and I think this will be a little more exciting. Chief, you want to take the lead on this?
Sure. Thank you. And before we start, I just want to thank a couple of employees that were key to our success. Mark and Buster, the building department, fire department, health department, police department have all worked together with your support over the last year and a half to clean up some of the neighborhoods that we have gotten significant credit for in those neighborhoods. If it wasn't for the support and ordinances that we've asked to be passed, we wouldn't be here today. So Chief Flanagan's going to start off. I'll follow, and Al will finish up. Chief.
Next slide.
Real quick, what happened here, we'll go back in 2008, where we were having what we call our abandoned building task force meetings, where we had 44, at the highest point, we had 44 abandoned buildings in Winthrop. And when you talk to the townspeople, that was just unbelievable to think that our town could have either 44 foreclosed buildings, derelict buildings, and we continue to work on that. As we continue, next slide please, we went through a couple of building inspectors, and now, we have our Commissioner Alan Gee on hand. But really, I think the key to the whole thing was the council, as Chief Delahanty said, gave us the tools. We sat at these council meetings night after night talking about how we're going to pass the fitness ordinance. Is it going to be 2 families, 4 families, 6 families? We all continue to still speak to each other. We hammered out an agreement and we put it to work, and I think it's been very successful. And the code enforcement, I have my chapter 148 nuisance bylaws. The police chief has been very active on disorderly houses that haven't passed or would not pass the fitness ordinance that, through the help of the council, got passed. And these same houses, and again, I'll get off the topic a little bit, that the drug overdoses, they're not always family names. They all have the same address though, and they make up. So as we've been cleaning up these properties, the calls for public safety service calls to these addresses also have dropped considerably. Our code enforcement task force, and again, myself, the police chief, Al Gee, the wiring inspector, the chief talked about Mark. It is unbelievable how many times in a given day, in a week, that we talk to each other. We're getting calls at 10 o'clock at night, we're boarding houses up in the dark. We've been very proactive, we've been very fair, but we're all residents of the town, and you have company, you bring them into Winthrop. There's so many areas now that oh, you can't get on that shit. Oh, I don't want to show them that. You can drive around town now, and every day it's getting better. There's one more eyesore, we call them landmarks, that is disappearing. But again, it's been the cooperation of all the agencies, which, in my 37 years, has never been like it is now. It's been your help, and again, it's the building commission, the police, fire, public health, the support of the manager, because we've been left alone on this thing. We're calling the assessor's office, and we've been able to do our job, and as my colleagues get up here later, they'll show you the results. Here's just a couple of quick pictures. Chief Delahanty's got all the good ones. But this is the inside of a couple of houses which we faced. They were derelict properties, they had no curbside appeal, and as we worked our way into these properties, the conditions were no better inside as outside. We would get calls from neighbors that they saw raccoons looking out the windows. So, these properties were truly not habitable. And again, I've always said to the manager, it's nice to be good at your job, but it's also to be lucky. This project that we had got a little more momentum because the economy has come back. And it's made it a very desirable option that we've taken. So why code enforcement? To improve the quality of life in the community. As we always are reaching out to the community and public and get out and meet your public, you cannot believe how many times you're in CVS or you get a call, oh chief, the things on Beacon Street, it's great. I mean, these are things people have been living with for 15, 20 years. They're going away. Decrease in the neighborhood disorder and fear. Again, the grass is cut, it's not overgrown. You don't have to cross the street to get by the grass and the weeds growing outside on the sidewalk on that side of the street. Opportunity for municipal employees to positively engage with residents for a common purpose. These are big items in town. I mean, some of these houses that you'll see pictures of as we move on, some of the finest families in town have lived next to them. Again, like I said earlier, for 15 and 20 years. And again, as we get rid of the derelict properties, the neighborhoods are improving. And again, it's going to cut down on the problems and basically the call for public service and public safety help. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Chief Delahanty.
Thank you. Next slide, David. We started this as a unified approach with all the department heads. The building commissioner has been great since he's come on. The building has come and gone. He's hopefully here to stay as part of our unified team. The support we've gotten from the town manager's office has been tremendous on this initiative. We still get from his office. When necessary, we do engage the town's legal team that takes over and then brings the receiverships into East Boston District Court or Superior Court, depending on the case and which and where they want to bring it. The landlords and property owners are giving an opportunity to come in and convince the judge that they can take the property back and make good and bring it up to code and make sure that the neighbors are not negatively affected in the future. So again, the inspection ordinance, going back to that, we can only tell people what we expect out of them when we inspect them. So next slide, please. We use the state building code and life safety codes in the town bylaw. The nuisance bylaws that we've passed, again, we do use the keeper of a disorderly house, called common law statute, to give us some leverage. We currently have 3 houses in district court under their common law. Municipal liens have become significant. That's one of the keys to make receivership successful. We have to show that we haven't been fining them under the safety codes and under the state building codes. And again, another way to do that, municipal liens, which increases the revenues back to the community. A lot of these houses don't pay their taxes, so we want to show that there's tax liens as well on that property. The finance department has been working with the building department to get all those records together for our lawyers. Again, we do have that foreclosed property registration list to make sure those properties do not fall into receivership, and whoever has the foreclosure keeps them up to standards. And then again, the receivership, that person's appointed by either the district court or superior court. They have to be bonded, and they have to come in with a plan. And a plan usually dictates a 6-month turnaround of that property to sell. They get their money back when the property sells. So they forward the money, front the money, they do all the repairs, doesn't cost the town one dime. But when they do sell, the town does have a municipal lien that has to be cleared for back taxes. Next slide, please. These are some of the cases that we've worked on. The first case was Seafoam. The one that's not listed up there, we actually had a building torn down on Shirley Street. That was the second case. 19 Lincoln Terrace, because we had this authority and power of receivership, that actually was a private sale once we said we're going to take it under receivership. That house, you'll see in a few minutes, a tremendous turnaround. 45 more, 48 Beacon. That's the front and back of that house. That is just tremendous. You'll see that slide in a few minutes. 398 is just starting to be renovated, and 7981 Winthrop Street was the house that we boarded up in the middle of the night. Chief Flanagan got that boarded up, and because of the receivership power, that went to a private sale recently, and they're repairing that. They have building permits pulled to repair that house. So next slide, David. This is 7 Seafoam. The left-hand picture was what we faced when we first started it. The right-hand picture is the current condition. Next slide. 19 Lincoln Terrace. Again, the right-hand side is under construction today. That's what we faced when we walked into that building. Again, conditions like that from rodents and a bunch of other problems, diseases. That person is being cared for by some neighbors up there, so that was a successful transfer of that property. That wasn't a receivership property. Go ahead, David. This one was our first receivership property. As you can see, even today, all the railings have been put on. So that's an after picture, which really doesn't do it as good a job as if you go by and look at it today. Next one. 398 Shirley Street. That's currently being renovated. That was our second receivership property. Again, I'm going to let Al finish up here and tell you where we're going with this program. Thank you.
Chief couldn't have said it better. As you know, I started in May, and we've moved forward, and we've done a lot of great things since we've merged the health department with the building department, and now we formed inspectional services. We're targeting properties that are illegal rooming houses, illegal basement apartments. We've come across some properties, things Chief Delahunty has forwarded to the department that there were harboring fugitives that were selling drugs, doing drugs. These properties are next to children. So, all these great, departments that we have in the town working together is really pushing inspectional services forward. Like they said, I know we said you're only as good as the staff that works on here. And I'm real fortunate for the staff we had. Mark Van Buska, phenomenal code enforcer. He's out there on weekends, he's out there at night, he's writing citations. He just, he's like a 24/7 guy. And I'm very, very fortunate to have him. I have a great staff, as a lot of you know. We have Bob Matarazzo, we have Shannon Sicarella. I do hire Jason Dunn, who's a health inspector / code enforcer. He's off to a great start, great electrical, plumbing. We're just, we're moving forward, and we're great. I'm very fortunate to have all these department heads around to help us. This is a new department, and with the help of all the other department heads at Town Hall, and especially our town manager, it's helped my department really move forward. Look what we've done a lot in 5 months, where we're going to be in a year from now. I think we've made some great progress. Thank you all.
Thank you. I think Al said it, if it wasn't for our staff, police and fire going into these places, notifying us to put it on that watch list, we wouldn't be as far along as we are today. So all that, they're doing a great job. Jim, we'll turn it back to you. And thank you for all your support and continued support.
That's exciting, isn't it? It's really amazing to see, when we have the kind of competency that the town has and we put it to use in this way, we can really transform the community. And so that's exciting. Thank you all for the continued work you're doing. Now we'd like to take a little journey down memory lane. Dave, Michael, can you cue up the slideshow? Ready to go? Sit back, enjoy. I don't have popcorn, but I think you'll like what we put together. amazing, isn't it? How much is going on in Winthrop these past 24, 36 months. It's staggering, really. And, you know, it's everybody here that's been, we've all been part of it. It doesn't go without saying, though, that we've got to recognize a few folks. And Steve Collins, the DPW, obviously, you guys have been. Thanks for everything you guys are doing. And, you know, I want to thank Paul O'Donnell and Amy Rodriguez for putting that slideshow together. We are going to air that on WCAT. Yeah, it really, put it all under one roof and show it like this, really, I think, takes us back to what we were looking at, and today, what we now see the progress with this town. It's just tremendous, isn't it? I'd like to have Peter Gill come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Jim, for that great presentation. I know that we see these things in progress, but putting it all together really hit the nail on the head. I don't think in all the organizations I've worked in, I've ever seen such a cooperative, enthusiastic effort and accomplishment of any group as we have here. From the leadership of Jim, the council passing the ordinance, as the chief mentioned, the chiefs working together with the building department, public safety and enforcement. It's just phenomenal. And I want to say that I used to hear years ago, oh, what's going on in this town? It looks terrible. Now I'm hearing the opposite. I'm hearing what's going on in this town. It looks tremendous. I told Steve Callan recently I'm kind of tired of hearing how good the streets look and how good the roads look. But it's, and I'm hearing it not only from people who live here, because some of us get kind of blinded when we see the building up every day, but I'm hearing it from new people that are moving here or considering moving here, that they think Winthrop is a jewel that has been undiscovered, and it's getting to be more and more of a jewel. I've heard from 7 people, I won't name them, who haven't been in town for 5, 6, or 7 years, have driven over the bridge and then down Walden Street and by the parks and saying, and by the buildings that have been taken over and by the buildings that are being redeveloped and saying, oh my God, what a difference. And Jim's final comment on the end, he started with Frank Scarpa when they were first talking about building the new high school. Winthrop's worth it. And every day we can say more and more that Winthrop is worth it. And I appreciate the opportunity that you people have given to me to be part of this team. Again, thank you, and thank you, Jim, thank you, all of our department heads, and all of our employees for your enthusiasm, and our various committee members for your enthusiasm, cooperation, and accomplishments. Thank you. This concludes our forum, unless there are any questions from the public for individual department heads. Thank you.